With a bi-yearly release schedule, there are some concerns about what kind of upgrades we would see in each new Sony Xperia release, and in this review we see if that worry actually holds up. Hey, it's Josh Vigard from Android Authority, and this is the Sony Xperia Z3. If there's one thing you can count on with Sony, it's their design language. Once again, we have the black slate design consisting of dual glass panels held together by a metal frame. The metal frame has been given a more polished, rounded look and feel, giving it an even sleeker profile than was found in previous iterations. A classic trope of Sony phones returns with the big silver power button, the volume rockers, and the dedicated camera button down on the bottom portion. But given that the buttons needed to blend in with the much more rounded design, I unfortunately did feel that they were not as meaty as before. There isn't that much distance in the press, and it just doesn't feel as good as it did in previous versions. Some changes have been made to the already established formula though. The covers also have a rounded and polished look to them now, feeling completely flush with the frame. Their presence gives sign to another big Sony trope: water and dust resistance. The dual front-facing speaker setup has also been altered to a couple smaller grills rather than the slits that were found on the Xperia Z2. If you already liked the design language that Sony puts into their Xperia line, well, you're going to like the Xperia Z3. However, I will say that because of the very soft feeling sides and the dual glass panels, I did find that the phone felt pretty slippery at times. I didn't constantly feel like I was going to drop the phone, but that thought did come up from time to time. And also, because it is glass on both sides, it's really hard to get this fingerprint and smudge-prone phone to look as pristine as it did when I first took the plastic off. I will go ahead and say that the further perfected design of this Xperia flagship is a worthy upgrade from the version from half a year ago, and it is as enticing for veteran users as it should be for newcomers. Long gone are the days when we were somewhat underwhelmed by the screen of the Xperia Z1. As the improvements were plainly shown in the Z2, they then carried over and now provide the Z3 with a great display experience. The same enhancements to this IPS LCD display return in the Triluminous tech and the X-Reality engine, ultimately providing an even better color production here than found in standard IPS offerings. The result is a screen coming in at 5.2 inches, 1080p resolution, and 424 pixels per inch that provides a lot of contrast and the kind of viewing prowess you'd come to expect from, let's say, Sony televisions. Text looks great, as do all games and media. The viewing angles are also quite great and are a vast improvement from previous generations of this screen, and the signature brightness of an IPS display shines through here as well. Though Sony looks to stay ahead of the curve with their release schedule, they fall slightly behind here with the performance aspect. Whereas we will be hearing the term Snapdragon 805 more and more these days, Sony has opted for the Snapdragon 801 for their latest smartphone, backed by the Adreno 330 and 3GB of RAM. Now, for those of you who want to be on the absolute bleeding edge, this might be a bit of a deal breaker, but it actually makes little difference in the overall experience. All but the most recent and most power-hungry games, for example, still performed wonderfully, and getting general tasks done is still very much possible, especially with the Xperia UI, which keeps things simple, minimal, and thus fast. Jumping between applications in the recent app screen is still a breeze, for example, making multitasking as easy as it can be. While it certainly would have been nice to see the latest and greatest processor on the Xperia Z3, it will still be a top-tier performer for the vast majority of you out there. Hardware has always been a strong point for Sony, whose offerings often bolster the media experience. The front-facing speakers return, and they are the great performers they have always been. Though there are some options in the sound settings that could make them even better and louder, the default settings at max volume still allowed for enjoyment even in the very noisy environments I tested them in.
Now that we have found this love, babe, I can't explain my feel.
The only thing I thought was missing in the sound department was the inclusion of the noise-canceling headphones that were included with the Xperia Z2, but I have been told that they are available in the box according to region, so I guess my version just didn't make the cut. What also didn't make the cut was an IR blaster, so you won't be using the Xperia Z3 like a remote, but all the other connections did come back here, like for example, NFC. Also, make sure you get the right version for your network. My D6653 was unable to connect to T-Mobile's high-speed internet and instead was only able to get the 700 band for AT&T. The internet was still pretty fast, but the constant search for signal and reception took a massive blow on my battery life, making true battery testing kind of tough to do. But speaking of battery, a 3100 mAh unit is bolstered by the usual suite of Sony battery saving options, so under the correct circumstances, longevity should be at a very comfortable high. My constantly searching radio antenna did help drain the battery life in around 13 hours, unfortunately, with pretty high usage. But with at least the stamina mode on, it trucked on for close to a day and a half due to the pretty stellar standby time. And in the end, we can't forget that all of this goodness is protected by IP certification, making this one of the sturdiest phones out there right now. It's clear that Sony has a lot of faith in their camera optics because this is the same package found in the original Xperia Z1. A 20.7 megapixel shooter that is capable of some enormous pictures also brings a lot of modes for fun and creativity. Modes like AR effect, background defocus, and time shift give you the tools needed to get a myriad of shots. Plenty more are available for download, should you need dedicated cameras for services like Evernote and Vine. 4K recording is also available, but huge file sizes might make you opt for the already good quality 1080p shots. Unfortunately, I still found the same issues here as I did in previous iterations. The 20.7 megapixel resolution is only accessible when in the full manual mode, after which you can get to a 16:9 aspect ratio by jumping down to 15.5 megapixels or the superior auto default of 8. And while the Superior Auto does a pretty good job of catering the settings to the shot, such features are not available in the 20.7 megapixel size. Now that being said, the picture quality is still very satisfactory. The 20.7 megapixel shots obviously capture more data, but for far less noise, the 8 megapixel shots of the Superior Auto will likely please more. Though there is a propensity here to overexpose the photos, this actually works in its favor when considering low-light shots. The Xperia Z3 yielded more usable low-light shots than plenty of its competitors, especially due to its capability to go as high as 12,800 ISO. And if anything, using the dedicated camera button to easily activate the app and then shoot makes the Xperia camera still one of the best tactile experiences currently available. Though minor upgrades across the board have proven noticeable and welcome, the software aspect doesn't quite fall under that category. But that's not really a bad thing. The Xperia UI returns with essentially the same look and feel as before, with its decidedly stock-like elements and a few additions piled on top. If there is one thing that we are always happy about with the UI, it's that the simplicity keeps things really fast, and the interface seldom slows down due to being overworked. Nonetheless, you get the general home screens, the app drawer, the notification dropdown with the quick settings shade, and the small apps that are found in the recent app screen if you want some small overlay tasks done. The main additions include Sony-specific applications like the Walkman, album, and the unlimited media buying experience. Connectivity to a PlayStation 4 is possible, allowing for streaming from a console to the phone on the same network. It's a feature I'm very excited to use, but unfortunately, I haven't bought my PS4 just yet. And the main addition here is the Life Log, which is a robust but somewhat disconcerting data logger that tries to record your entire life. Everything from internet usage, camera usage, Facebook usage, to even your steps and distance traveled are recorded and illustrated by an avatar on the screen. You can literally look back on the Life Log and see what you have done in the past day or even beyond. I wouldn't blame you for being wary about just how much specific data is being monitored, but I will admit that for anyone out there that likes to journal or just have logs for everything from fitness to data usage, it's an interesting tool that will later connect to Sony's wearables for even better data recording. Ultimately, there's a lot to like about the Xperia UI, simply because there isn't a whole lot of stuff to wade through. Sony continues to put faith in their user interface, and we continue to like what we see. The Sony Xperia Z3 is currently available for the full unlocked price of around $529, putting it squarely in the realm of flagship smartphone in both value and price, but it is also available for pre-sale on T-Mobile in the States right now. Its main competitors include the other flagships, including the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8, especially considering it comes with a comparable performance package. And so, there you have it, the next iteration of the Xperia flagship line, perhaps available too soon for some people's taste. And for a number of people out there, the upgrades might not fully justify what could be a costly upgrade. But for the veteran Xperia fan, the Z3 provides just enough to keep things fresh, and does so very successfully in the design department especially. For anyone that hasn't had the Xperia Z2, the Z1 before it, or even the Z before that, the Xperia Z3 is another example of our phone manufacturers continuously trying to perfect what has already been a pretty good experience. We can't fault Sony for having faith in a product that already showed us what they were made of 2 versions ago, and we certainly can't blame them for continuing to make that experience even better now. Thank you very much for watching this review of the Sony Xperia Z3. I do think it is a great offering from Sony, but it falls just short of really matching some of the top competitors out there. But I'm actually really excited to bring you the other releases by Sony as well. The Xperia Z3 Compact, of which you can see an unboxing already on the side, and the Z3 Tablet Compact. I'm excited mostly about the Compact because it does pretty much lie in a class of its own, being a small offering with the big performance. So keep it tuned here for that and even more from from me and my colleagues in Android Authority, Joe, Jace, Kevin the Tech Ninja, and of course Lon. And from there, make sure you drop us some likes on our videos, to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and once you're done with all of that, head on over to AndroidAuthority.com for even more, because we are your source for all things Android.